RecoverCon podcast is dedicated to the growth of ideas, concepts, and outlooks that support recovery and recovering communities. I'm Gerald Lott, your host and a person in long-term recovery. I'm also founder and executive director of Sauk Valley Voices of Recovery, a recovery community organization serving Northwest Illinois. I'm a certified recovery support specialist, entrepreneur, and a father. And after a long list of careers, I found my calling in helping others to find recovery from substance use disorders. I work with many people, several addiction-related advisory boards, all sorts of groups every day. And my core belief is that people must make an effort to change their lives for recovery. The saying, no pain, no gain, is exactly correct. A person cannot experience significant life changes without enduring, accepting, and often welcoming discomfort. It isn't the change that hurts, it's our resistance to it. Today, I have a guest from far away, a place that to my mind doesn't make sense. You say Vancouver, I think of Vancouver in Canada. He's in Vancouver in America, but we're going to talk about this. He is the founder of an organization called Couve Collective, and he is running a recovery cafe. And if you're not familiar with the recovery cafe model, we'll get into that a little bit. My guest is Kyle Peterson. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Hey, Gerald. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from.
So, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, actually, and went from the desert a few years ago and moved up here to the Pacific Northwest, which Vancouver here in America is just north of Portland, and I had never heard of it before I moved here either, so no worries, man.
So is it in Oregon or Washington?
It's in Washington on the Washington side of the river, so just across the river from Portland.
Okay.
And I was born and raised in Mesa, Arizona, which is outside of Phoenix, and then ended up here about 4 years ago now.
Okay. So is Vancouver a big town, or how many people there?
Definitely not as big as Portland, although like this area of Washington this last year was like this fastest growing area of the state, like even compared to Seattle. So, I mean, it's maybe close to 1 million people, or no, 500,000 people. It is getting bigger and bigger, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, it's crazy even in the few years that I've been here to see the expansion.
So let's talk about, how do you come to get into this? Are you in recovery? What's your story?
Yeah, man. So I'm in my mid-30s, and like a lot of people, my age, I am a product of the opiate epidemic, man. My drug of choice is oxycodone and heroin, and of course started with the prescription pills and eventually moved to heroin, and so I have that experience, and it took me to the streets. I've been clean for a little over 6 years, but thanks, man. It's still day by day, right? But yeah, a little over 6 years ago, I was on the streets and just feeling hopeless, and I took someone reaching out to me to remind me that like community and connection are like super important and what it's all about, and that there was a better way of life. And I ended up at a place called the Phoenix Rescue Mission, and then eventually up here where that idea, really continued to take hold, and kind of why we started what we did.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on 6 years. That's big stuff, man.
Thanks.
Big stuff. There's nothing cooler than meeting somebody, who, like myself, has, come out of it and then turned around to help the next person behind them. And that's very admirable. Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's nothing like when you like fulfill your calling, right? There's nothing more meaningful in life just to see the light come on in other people's eyes and to be able to try to make a difference in this world.
The interesting thing is I have tried so many different ways to find myself, to find happiness, to find fulfillment. I thought I could find it in career advancement. I thought I could find it in money. I thought I could find it in all these things. And it's just funny how the worst part of me, my addiction, turned out to be the linchpin to the best part of me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
enough, enough with me trying to cry here. I'm not going to do
No
that.
worries.
So I got introduced to the Recovery Cafe model 18 months or so ago. I
Mhm.
had seen I had seen a movie Greg Williams did called The Anonymous People, in
Mhm.
which he discussed a bar that was down in Texas, or maybe it was Ryan Hampton's movie, uh, Facing Addiction Across America. But one of them stopped into this bar. They had a pool table, they had, coffee, so on and so forth. And they were just kind of loosely attached to the recovery community. And I thought that's what Recovery Cafe was. And then I went to a seminar on it, and I found out about the group circles and the activities and things like that. And it's pretty cool. It seems like a step between uh, a recovery community center and a treatment center. Am I getting close?
Yeah, I like to think of us as like I kind of like tried to coin this phrase like the community part of the community continuum of care, right? Like we have this for so long we've had this idea I feel like or at least I know when I first went to treatment like go to treatment and oh I'm all better and I get out and then I guess I go to some meetings and life's going to be awesome as long as I do that and then like I don't know, life really hits you in the face, and it just thought like there's got to be a place where people could go to find that community that you so crave and that you find in treatment oftentimes,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, exactly, like kind of that gap, bridging that gap and filling that space of one, helping people build connection, but also having fun in recovery. You know what I mean? Like making that easy for people.
Yeah, and that's what our organization tries to do. And we have foregone the cafe model.
Hmm.
Although I feel sometimes we're leaning back towards it, but the key is the community. That
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. And the interesting part is, some of the best relationships I've had were with people that were in treatment with me, because here we are, we got nothing else to do, nobody else to talk to. We burned down everything in our life, and we just are so connected. But
Hmm.
then 3 weeks out of treatment, the calls slow down, life starts getting lifey, and you lose connection to those people, whether it is because you or they relapse, or everybody just goes their separate way. But here's the funny part is, one of the issues that I started with was, I'm not really comfortable walking into a building saying, "Hi, I'm Gerald," and making friends and becoming part of the pack.
Yeah.
So people say, "Well, going over to the Recovery Community Center."
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
this. I'm the exact same way, Joe. Like I make the joke that one of the reasons I started this place was because I needed friends,
right, right.
right? Like, and so like I've always had that mindset of try to like sneak it, make it like we're like recovery ninjas or like connection ninjas. I guess I like to say to our staff sometimes, like I don't want people to even realize that, like, oh my gosh, like I'm making friends and I'm having all these things, like, until suddenly, it's there. And so, like, you try to do that, like you said, by like having activities or have, I think a big one is breaking bread together, having meals
Mhm.
together, or just simple, enjoyable things. Because I feel the same way. Like, I have that social anxiety, and that's one of the big, reasons that prompted me to start using. And and just finding, like anybody with trauma and isolation and addiction in their past, or any type of, significant mental health struggles, like connection is a real difficult thing, and trust is often a real difficult thing. And so we try to just make that a warm, welcoming place where you feel like you're at home, and you don't even, you kind of ease into it, based on, one of our biggest things is we meet people where they're at. We call it generosity of spirit. And like it's because it's super hard, and that's why, we felt like we needed to exist.
Well, believe me, man. Johann Hari talked about the opposite of addiction being connection, and I built my company on it.
Mhm.
That's what we do. We how do we get people to interact? And the unfortunate thing is we're dealing with a very transactional population.
Yeah.
And I tell my team, you have to give value. You cannot just say, "Hey, come here." Um,
Mhm.
I talk about raccoons. Where I live, we have a lot of raccoons, and you can't put a sign at the end of your driveway and be like, "Hey, raccoons, welcome," and they'll come. But if you leave your garbage out,
They're
right,
gonna be there.
they're going to be there because they're finding value. And so
Mhm.
my team sometimes are like, well, why aren't the people in recovery coming to our events? Why aren't they coming to meet with us? Why aren't they coming to these groups? They're not finding value,
Mhm.
right? What are you offering? Are you the conduit to the new job they need? Are you the conduit to the new apartment? Are you the conduit to the relationships
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah,
looking for?
I think that's kind of the cool things about, you mentioned the Recovery Cafe Network. I mean, so um, it's a social franchise. I don't have to dive into it right now, but each cafe can be unique. And so our kind of, flavor, I would like to say, is that like being able to adjust and be, what it is our members need us to be. So like, we do and we have programming that's focused on like change, and like that's what draws some people, is really getting that support for like, hey, I want to flourish in life and I need some life skills and some support around that. For other people, it's just like that circle, right, which is just getting a few connections, and like maybe they're busy with work, or we're also able, we have host some meetings here, so it might just be that. Other people, it is like I always laugh, like one of the biggest groups that we have is Diamond Dots, which I never heard of before, but it's like this paint by numbers kind of thing,
Wow.
where you sit. I don't have the patience for it, but they turn on 80s hair music, and people just sit, and I mean, it's like one of the biggest ways that people connect, I see, and laugh, and it just like always blows my mind that that's been one of our most popular groups that people have wanted, is just something simple. I think it's just like that act of having something that kind of breaks the ice and keeps
Right.
your mind focused, but then allows you to have some conversations with other people. Like, so we're able to be those things. And you're absolutely right. Like, you can't just open the doors and say, hey, come on, like, here we are. Like, we like, I always tell my staff, like, we want people to walk in our doors and feel like we've been waiting for them to arrive,
Right.
and like they are family, and like we like are going to add something meaningful to their life, because you're right, otherwise you get busy, and then it's like, well, why should I even go?
Yeah. So talk to me about the Recovery Cafe model where you come in and you get assigned to a group and
Yeah.
how many times you have to come and walk me through that.
Absolutely. So the network was started in Seattle, not too far away from us. It has like started to really take off and spread across the U.S. I think they're as far as Indiana now, and maybe the next cohort is even more east. But so it's kind of based around the membership idea, that people fulfill three requirements for membership, and in exchange, they have access to not just the space but the services that each cafe provides. Typically there is some type of meal, but the three requirements for membership: everything we do is free, but we ask that people be drug and alcohol free on the premises.
Mhm.
We ask that the second one, we ask that people attend what we call a circle, which is basically like an hour-long commitment at the same time every week, where you get to know a few other people. Maybe we try to keep them to like 8 to 10 people, and it's just to check in. Although some of our circles, like the goal that I always tell our circle leaders is like, once people get to know each other, we want it to be like that discussion where people are, getting that loving accountability from each other as well as that support. So that's the second requirement. And the third requirement is that you just give back when you can. And that looks like whatever it is. Some people that's bringing in some food, that might be cleaning the space. It might be reaching out to a new member. Just what I tell people, whatever's on your heart, to give back, because we are a community, right? Like I happen to work here and make some things happen, but this is no more my community than it is, the person that's been, that's a member that comes through our doors. So, um, like so you fulfill those three requirements for membership, and then you have access to our space whenever we're open. And like I said, we try to make it feel like you're at home. You can come hang out, and just watch TV or visit. Or we always have food available. Some cafes have like 2 meals a day. We're just not like at that size. We do offer dinners for our members. And that's kind of where like cafe, when you think of cafe, you think of like, yeah, like coffee and bagels and stuff. It is kind of like a loose term, more of like a hangout space, I guess, is like kind of what the definition of cafe is across the network.
So I put the phone number up here for people that are seeing us online, but I want to, for people that audio only, his number is 564-208-4842. So what are your hours?
So our hours are Tuesday through Saturday, roughly about 2 to 8:30.
Okay.
On Tuesday and Wednesday, right now, we are closing a little early, like at 6, just because for some special programming. But typically, 2 to 8:30, and yeah, and like I said, we outside of just like the core, space for people to hang out, we're able to provide a lot of outreach work, because of our location, working with our houseless neighbors, who are maybe still struggling, and then some other programming. But the like I said, the network being that idea of a membership, and having, kind of like that exclusivity, but kind of helps drive interest, I guess. And but also the accountability of showing up for a community, because that, like as you said, like it takes, my phrase is always, you got to have skin in the game,
Right.
and so like having, that where people have those membership requirements, we found has been super helpful, to keeping the community going and keeping the community safe. And those three requirements are the same across the entire network.
Yeah, it's a great concept. It really
Mhm.
is. She's got your email up over me. There's me. All right. Um, so, man, it's a great concept, and the thing is, it's got to come from a place of love.
Mhm.
It's got to come from you wanting people to experience, like you said, that community. Why is that so important to you?
Oh, I think because when I remember some of the last days when I was out on the streets, and I think that, like, yes, I was feeling hopeless, and I hated myself. But I remember, like, specifically, one of the nights right before, I had like one of those God moments that really brought me back. I was just like walking down the street and looking into like looking, down at people's windows, and just thinking like, I just want to be normal. I just want to have people that I feel like care about me. And I just want to be able to feel like I can do something with my life, and forever. Like I feel like, and I don't feel like it's exclusive to me. Like this is a story that I hear over and over in the rooms, right? Of just feeling different and not feeling a part of.
Mhm.
And so like I just longing for that community and finding it in treatment, like you said, right? And then leaving treatment and really struggling to find it outside of there. Like I just wanted to make that happen, not just for me, but for other people. And I feel like it's a loss of community. Like, I mean, overall, is one of the biggest issues that we have socially, right? That disconnect and loss of connection and community. But we try to really, not just, one of our foundations is like, we believe that pretty much everybody's in recovery for something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to be able to try to bring people together and try to say like, hey, like, there's more things that make us, that bring us together, and like that type of power, that love, right, that binds us, is a lot stronger than the differences that we have, and the things that could tear us apart. So,
I understand completely, man. I understand completely. As you were describing, walking around wanting to be normal, there's just no more soul squelching
yeah,
feeling. You're like walking down the street feeling like an alien, right?
yeah.
Like I don't belong on this planet. And when people don't understand the profound loneliness,
Hmm.
just utter despair, and it doesn't have to be. And so I thank you for the work you're doing, and
Thanks, man.
that's awesome stuff, man. It's I guess it's more of it's a different world
Hmm.
than when I was using, man. We didn't have the internet and all that.
Yeah.
We didn't have Tinder, right? That's like the most unreal thing to me is the idea that you could just pick up your phone and be like, I want to meet somebody, and
Yeah.
and basically order up a person.
Yeah.
Back when I was coming up, you had to do it the hard way. You had to walk up and ask them, hey, do you like me? And lay yourself bare to possibly getting rejected.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I didn't really know how to handle that. My ego was so messed up and so fragile, probably still is, that it was easier to hide in drugs.
Hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
it was easier to say, I don't want to be around people. I don't need them. Um, I'll just go over here by myself. And today I realize that I absolutely want to be surrounded by people. I want to be a part of, not
Yeah.
apart from.
Yeah. I will say, it's funny that you bring up Tinder. Like, I do. You're absolutely right that like it is kind of a crazy concept that like, yeah, I can just order someone. And I will say, like, I feel like that sometimes is like that quick fix, right? That people would rather try to sit on Tinder and get that like instant gratification, right? Instead of putting in the work of that change. And just brings me back to what you were saying earlier about having to add value, right? Because that's what we're fighting against, right? Like, is
Right.
that like that drug, or that like instant, like, oh yeah, swipe right, swipe right, swipe right, or the algorithm of the feed, right? And to get people, because like, while the allure of those things is that they're bringing connection, I really just feel like it's a hot wired connection almost, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not.
I do. I do. I understand exactly. And the thing is, I believe that every like myth and ghost
Hmm.
story comes from truth.
Hmm.
And you ever heard that you have to invite a vampire in?
No, I haven't.
Right. So vampires can't just come in your house. You have to invite them in,
Right.
right? So if you think about like, some of these things we do, Tinder and Facebook and all that, how many times do we invite somebody into our life
Ooh.
that isn't good for us?
Hmm.
Because we don't know that much about them. We know this two
They look
dimension.
good.
Yeah, this two dimension. I've been watching your Facebook feed, and you seem to really be into motorcycles, and I'm into motorcycles. So let's be friends. So I've just
Hmm.
invited you in. not knowing that you are just a crazed psychopath, you know,
Yeah,
that, is going to show up
absolutely.
at my house with an ounce of Coke and a bottle of Jack Daniels. Like, let's get jiggy,
Right. Let's party.
Right. You know, but that's how the world works these days, man. It's I
Yeah.
spend a lot, the universal I spend
Hmm.
a lot of time judging my life off of what you've chosen to show me in your
Yeah.
social media, and I
Yeah.
always come up
Short.
less than.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Absolutely. And I always, I mean, say like tell people when they first coming in, because like I've obviously been there too, right? Like we've all been there, of like seeing, especially those that have had significant struggles in our life, of like watching our peers, advance past us and have families and things like that while we're sitting there struggling. And I always try to tell people, like, yeah, like that's poison. Like let's try to have real authentic, like let's authenticity is what it's about, not about just, oh, here's what I want you to see. That's
Right.
what drives real connection. um and so yeah, it's a scary, like world out there, as far as, just not just when it comes to access to drugs and things like that, but to the accepted drugs, you know what I mean, those things that, that can be just as dangerous for us in the long run. Yeah. And I
I love
hope
you
that,
said accepted drugs. What are the accepted drugs? Because is marijuana legal where you are?
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
And that
same
that is
here.
a yeah, that is a big one. I mean, I was thinking like things like gambling and food and, sex and things like that. But yeah,
Shopping,
marijuana is, yeah, shopping. Holy cow, man.
right?
Shopping's a huge one.
Social media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a when you say accepted or legal drugs, we're talking about anything that people are using to hide from today,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And man, there's so many of them.
Right.
There's so many of them. You
Right.
know, it they talk about the cat lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
With 42 cats in her house.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just in there talking to them cats, hiding from the world and from today. And
Yeah.
those cats are her drug. And,
Absolutely. Yeah,
you
I
know,
heard someone say not that long ago, and it's like really stuck with me, that like one of like my real addiction was to fantasy. And
mm,
and that stuck with me so much, that like, yeah, like holy, my real addiction was I could not accept reality or myself.
right.
And like that's the real work that I try to do today, is like, okay, then like let's make a way for me to be okay with myself first, and then let's like make a reality that I could be okay with, right? And to me, that includes having, you know uh and I've seen it over and over again, like some real and meaningful connections, and those are the hard things to do, like you said, like that's the hard work. I'll never forget like one of the moments that really, just like I look back at my recovery, where like I'm like, man, like I suddenly noticed a change in myself. I was driving, and I was just driving home one day, and I was like thinking about like, all these things, these different things that I had, and that I wanted to do. For me, it was, here in the Pacific Northwest, I just gotten a new tent, and was like thinking about going outside and camping. And then like all of a sudden it just struck me that like, hey, I want to call someone and talk to them. And I was like, wait, like that's not me. That is not my default, like, and I was like thinking to myself, I want to talk to him because like I care about him, and like that's what's meaningful in my life. Like that's what I want to do, is I want to spend time with people. And like those are the moments that I want everyone in recovery to experience, to
Hmm.
feel like suddenly like, oh my gosh, like what I really value in life are the people that I have in it that I care about. And because there's nothing like it.
It's tremendous that you hit on that, because I think all of us find that as the person we are fights his way out, right? Because we built these walls, and as that person fights their way out, you do find those kind of interesting things. I spent this weekend, and I've been sober a while, man, double digits, but I spent this weekend watching Wicked. What? My kids have been talking about it, and they've seen it, and they've been singing the songs. I've heard about it for years, and it just was never something I would do. And it's available, so I said I'll give it a watch, and I kind of enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know that I'm gonna dress up.
Oh, come on, Joe! You gonna sing us one of the songs, or
I don't know if I'm gonna dress up and go to the premiere of the next one, but it was enjoyable, and there's been so many things that my using self could not appreciate.
No.
But my recovered self is like, man, I was missing out on all this.
Right.
Missing out on all this, just a simple walk in the daytime, getting some fresh air, those kind of things that I absolutely could just not appreciate.
No, I couldn't sit in reality at all,
Yeah. If it wasn't blowing up or some kind of chaos to it, it couldn't even catch my attention. Well, man, we have talked for a half hour, and I hate that we're going to have to get off, but I mean, I hope that we can keep the conversation going. I love to get out and travel, and I definitely want to come up to your area and see the recovery.
Yeah, man, we'd love to have you. We have a camp out at the second weekend of August. I don't know what you got going on, but it's always a great time. So you're more than welcome to
How many people do you guys get?
Usually about, it's grown every year. This will be like our third or fourth year doing it this year. And last year it was like 70 70 people. Some people come for because we start on a Friday and then end on a Sunday afternoon, so some people come up just for the Saturday. The theme that we always work on, it's a workshop on telling your story, and so it's always a huge hit. And but yeah, man, love to have you.
I'm putting up the website now so that you can so people can check you guys out, and that's the right spelling, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
That's perfect.
For those at home, it's Couve, COUVE, as in Vancouver, couvecollective.org. So Kyle, thanks for being here, man. Thanks for the conversation.
I really appreciate you having me, man, and for all the work that you're doing out there. It's needed, not we gotta take things back. I'm tired of people dying.
I hear you, man. And that's a great way to end this. So people at home, you keep hearing week after week that all over the country, there's people that want to help. Kyle Peterson and the Couve Collective out there, Sauk Valley Voices of Recovery here, Hope Recovery Community in Medina, Ohio, with Samantha Evans, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Just people everywhere that want to help. You don't have to do this alone. If you're struggling, if you feel like you can't make it, reach out. Go to social media. Instead of swiping for somebody at Tinder, swipe for somebody in recovery. Go to one of our websites. Ours is svvor.org. Theirs is couvecollective.org. But reach out to somebody. If you can't find help that way, go to your police department, your hospital. Go knock on the neighbor's door and just say, I'm all screwed up, so help me. But somebody will help you, because you don't have to do this alone.
Amen. Never have to do it alone again. You never have to feel that way again.
You never have to feel that way again. So until next week, take care of yourself.
Thanks, Gerald.
See you.